Financial markets are characterized by a group of people that think the markets are going to go lower, contrasted with a group of people that think the markets are going to go higher. That is what makes a market. And a lot of times people forget that. People say, oh, well, the market's going down in a week. And they forget that for every seller, there's a buyer. So for everybody at any price point that thinks the market is going lower, there's somebody who thinks the market is going higher on the other side of that. And thus, it is not clear what the markets are going to do at any given point in time. What I've noticed this week is that it feels like more than usual, there is a divergence of point of view about the market. On one side, there is the bull case, and I saw some statistics on Twitter saying that this period has had more upgrades than any of stock prices, that being analysts changing their price targets to the upside than any other time. And then there's the other side. We've seen these articles saying that this market is completely out of touch with the actual economy in the United States / world. So there's certainly a divergence of point of view. And the sum total of that is that we get a market that's been in a sort of range lately. And the case for this is made more by the S&P 500 than the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ is actually broken out to the upside, whereas the S&P 500 has sort of gone sideways. So let's take a look at some charts and see if we can illustrate this a little bit. So if I pull up the E-minis as a proxy for the S&P 500, and we kind of back things out a little bit here, we can see that we are off the highs. Ooh, look, we rallied a little bit right towards the open here. But if we look here, we are off the highs by a little bit. We haven't actually gotten back to the all-time highs yet. Let's go 3 years out. So there's the kind of story in a 3-year picture for the S&P 500. But once again, if we go to like a 20-day, we can see we're kind of moving sideways. In fact, this sort of 20-day almost puts us in a sort of slight downtrend. And the NASDAQ, however, kind of, although it has broken to new highs, sort of in a range as well. So we get, a day of great optimism followed by another day of optimism and then a couple days of pessimism, this sort of thing. The VIX continues to be kind of high. And there's been a lot of talk about how the VIX, the fact that the VIX term structure has been very, very flat, thus the futures being a similar price to the spot VIX, and there not being a lot of curvature, contango, or backwardation either way, that basically the VIX term structure, although never predictive, at this point is extremely neutral in what it's showing. If we look at go to VIX Central really quick for a chart, we can see what I'm talking about there. And personally, my bias has been very bearish lately. I think that has to do with my kind of macro analysis of the economy right now as it relates to the COVID thing. So we've seen the number of cases spike. We're up around a record of, I think, 45,000 cases now. Dr. Fauci famously came on TV, I believe yesterday, and said we could get up to 100,000 new cases a day. But juxtaposed to that is the fact that the death rate from COVID has been continued to move lower, and we haven't seen a spike in deaths to coincide with the spike in new cases now, and there's kind of a disagreement over that, over whether that is just because the deaths will follow after a couple weeks, or that they've just gotten better at treating this once it gets into the hospitals. We'll have to wait and see for that. But overall, there is certainly a consensus that we will not shut down again, no matter what. I think that the administration has made that pretty clear, and thus, for a simplified view, the market is saying, everything's back to normal. And I've talked to several friends who are saying, this is a new bull market. We're going to explode from here, blah, 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 blah. So there's a case for the upside, a case for the downside. And certainly when we have a day like yesterday where everything seems to be going straight up, you can definitely feel that rally. Take a stock such as Tesla, approaching 1100 here, and just really another breakout in Tesla from that 1,000 range, which we thought was kind of a inflection point, or even kind of a gravity point pulling shares towards 1,000. Well, we just busted right through that in yesterday's session. So evidence of the market rally, but once again, when we back up to the big picture, we see a sideways market overall in the last, shall we say, month of trade. So where does that leave us? What are the opportunities for trading here? And, you guys get upset with me sometimes because I sort of bill my channel as a VIX channel, and then I go off on tangents, sometimes trading other stuff. And I certainly did. I kind of did that over the last couple sessions. If we look at my positions right now, I was short Lulu yesterday, and what I did was I came and just slightly short it, like 20 delta short it. You can see on this gap up here. This is a gap up due to them announcing a takeover of another business by Lulu. And then on the open yesterday, around 316, 317, I shorted the stock via a put spread, and I did get a nice move down like $7 and covered most of it down $7. So that was a nice little trade for me there. But now Lulu threatening to take off to the upside again. If we just look at this chart, just amazing how this has exploded and taken on a much higher level than it was pre crisis with the pandemic. And that, in a sense, that's kind of a red flag for me to say, well, are the prospects for this company really way better than they were pre this crisis, where we see massive unemployment? If you have massive unemployment, it would stand to reason that there's less people there to buy expensive yoga pants. And I know that could be seen as a simplistic way of viewing things, but that is kind of my rationale here. My short is sort of saying, well, in a macro sense, the conditions in the economy are deteriorating right now, and thus, when I see a stock that's moving in the absolute opposite direction, I feel that this will need to kind of align with the situation on the ground at some point and come back down a bit. Of course, we're only $12 from taking out the all-time high here. And if that happens, this could explode more to the upside. So I'm keeping a very tight rein on this position. I'm not looking to, go down with the ship here or be stubborn. In fact, it's highly likely that I'll just cover this on the open here, as it appears like we're going to move higher again. We had the VIX at a really elevated level, and stuff was moving sideways. But the last couple sessions, vol has come in. We've seen the VVIX move lower. VVIX, of course, being a measure of the implied volatility of options on the VIX. We saw that move down to that, according to TheoTrade guys, 120 is a key level. We saw it move below 120 briefly yesterday. Now it's kind of hanging there. Also, the VIX moved down through 30 again. And I did pull up the VIX chart for a second there, although I didn't really comment on it too much. Let's go back to that VIX chart again. I guess I get distracted there for a second. And we can, I'm sorry, this is the VIX term structure. And we can see it has arranged itself into contango a little bit. The key features of this chart are we can see that peak up here, which represents election-related volatility. And then we can see the futures arranging themselves in contango. From that forward to now, and then but however after that we see a backwardation between the election and the next part of the cycle, and then a flatness. This is a pretty flat chart still. We see about 2 points between the spot VIX and the second month future, which is not a whole lot. And we see just over a point 15 between the spot VIX and the front month future. So we have arranged ourselves back into contango, but it's not real definitive by any stretch of the imagination. Still getting a lot of questions about TVIX delisting. So TVIX delisting, it will trade OTC after it's delisted. And what that will mean in terms of most of you for trading in your brokerage is the symbol will be sort of changed. It will trade over the counter, and over-the-counter markets are characterized by illiquidity. So, you know, the difference between the bid and the offer may be quite large. I strongly encourage you just to get out of your position, move on to something else. If you just really don't want to do that, that may just be a sign of your stubbornness to, you know, to accept that you may have losses and move on. So encouraging everybody just to get out of the position. A lot of questions. You can go check out my video live stream about that and go to the comment section, because tons and tons of questions in the comment section, which I went through and pretty much answered each one of them individually in the notes. That way, if other people have a similar question, they can kind of go check that stuff out. But yeah, I've been hesitant to short volatility just because it seems like it's quote unquote fairly priced here. Now, we know that these products will move lower at some point, but it doesn't seem like the right time for me personally to commit my limited amount of capital to shorting these products, because it's not clear. It's never clear exactly what direction they're going to go in, but at this point, it just doesn't seem like it's not jumping out at me as an entry point. I mean, I could see us having another pop where there would be a better entry point than now. So largely on the sidelines, I have been messing around with this Lulu short, which will probably end today. It hasn't worked out too well. Essentially, like the first day, I lost about $800 on it. Yesterday, I made about 600 back. So net, it's been a slight loser for me. So that's kind of where we are. Appreciate everybody watching. Please consider becoming a channel member or supporting on Patreon, because that really does help out the channel with the limited resources right now during the crisis and all that. Thank you for watching the show. As always, I appreciate all the regulars out there, normal supporters, and I encourage everybody to reach out to me. I love having that ongoing dialogue with many people about their positions and just about life in general. So I appreciate all you guys, and keep doing what you're doing. Thanks so much for all your support, and we'll see you next time. You're watching Famous Days.